Welcome, and thank you so much for having us here. In the first English-speaking session of Mifleget Hamachshavot, which is an expression that's hard to translate to English, but it is our podcast where myself and Dr. Micah Goodman, who I'm sure all of you probably know, public intellectual, best-selling author, one of the greatest thinkers in Israel today, we dive together into the great ideas behind Israeli politics. So I think since October 7th, the question that everyone is asking in Israel, outside of Israel, is what does Israel have to do to win the war? Like, how do we destruct the Hamas? How do we free the hostages? What should we do in Rafah? What's going on with Hezbollah in the north? Humanitarian aid, more or less. And the biggest question of all is what to do on the day after. So this is a major question. What does Israel have to do to win the war? But here's the question that no one is asking and no one is talking about, because on that question there's a lot to read about and to listen to and to deal with. But here's a question that no one is asking. Not what does Israel have to do in order to win the war, but who does Israel need to be in order to win the war? And I want to ask you, Micha, why is this such an important question?
First of all, hello. How are you? It's great to be here. We just got off a plane.
Yeah, literally now.
And we came for this, and then we're leaving. So it's great to be here. Many years ago, Ehud Barak came up with a metaphor that captured the minds of many Israelis. He said that Israel is a villa b'jungel. Did that metaphor make it here? It's a mansion in the jungle. And here's what Ehud Barak meant. I don't know if it's a very politically correct metaphor today, but it captured the minds of Israelis, and Israelis used it to try to think about our situation, and this metaphor is back ever since October 7th. A mansion in the jungle, villa b'jungel. A mansion means a Western liberal democracy. A jungle means a neighborhood like the Middle East, filled with dictatorships, emptied from liberal values, filled with, and a lot of poverty. And there's a multi-dimensional gap between Israel, between who we are and where we are. The villa b'jungel. Now, why is this question coming back, like Efrat said? This question is coming back because ever since this war began, me and Efrat detected there's a voice in Israel that's growing loud. That people are saying, we can't win this war if we stay Western. Western values are making us weak. Western education, Western way of thinking is making us mefunakim. Spoiled, pampered. Westernism is making us weak. We can't win if we're a mansion. In order to win, we have to become the jungle.
Or the way Israelis refer to this is we have to start speaking Arabic.
Metaphorically speaking. I mean, it's also a good idea for our intelligence to know more Arabic. But metaphorically...
That's the expression. We have to start speaking Arabic. So I think it's interesting to try to unpack the metaphor of the mansion in the jungle to try to understand who Israel and Israelis need to be in order to fight this war and to win it.
Do we need to be the mansion or the jungle?
Right.
Western or Middle Eastern? Who do we need to be in order to win? And there is a voice in Israel saying, in order to win in the Middle East, you have to become the Middle East.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a question we're asking, and we'll try. Is this an interesting question for you? Okay. So
let's try to unpack. First of all, let's try to take this metaphor and look at the two parts of it separately. Okay. What does it mean to be a mansion What did Ehud Barak mean, like in the deep sense of the word?
Okay, so there's so many thinkers, intellectuals, and philosophers asking, what is the secret of success of Western civilization? Western civilization is successful. It brought a lot of powerful values and abundance and success to any society that adopted the system way of thinking. But the question is, what is the secret sauce? What is the secret of the success of the West? There's many, many thinkers here. We just want to offer one, what will help us out. We want to offer one aspect of what makes Western society successful, because that's the aspect that makes Israel very successful. And it's the following aspect. The West managed to figure out, how do you build a bridge between individualism, and I would say even egoism, and collectivism. There's a constant tension between collectivism and individualism, and the West figured something out. And here's what the West figured out. And here, this has a lot to do with Adam Smith and John Stuart Mill and many others that actually came from here, okay? And we never noticed that. Yeah, that here's the secret formula. Western civilization, first of all, ideas of liberalism, meaning I have rights, I have liberties, don't tell me what to do, don't be judgmental, and my rights are protected from government. That's a very important idea. But liberalism, and its base, there's individualism. And individualism is, I think, the following idea: not only that I have rights that should be protected, I have dreams and I need to pursue them. The way we understand this is that liberalism is I'm thinking in Hebrew. By the way, we're both Israelis.
Yeah, so bear with us.
Bear with us. And we think in Hebrew. And our podcast is in Hebrew. But for you all, this is a windows into a real, authentic Israeli
dilemma
conversation that we're having in Israel as we're talking. So liberalism is like the mitzvat lo ta'aseh of the West. How do we translate that? A negative mitzvah. This is what you don't do. You don't violate people's rights. Individualism is the mitzvah taseh. It's what you do. Every individual is commanded to pursue its own dreams, to implement its own dream, self-fulfillment. And liberalism plus individualism, there's one third component, and that's capitalism, which means we're individuals, where their rights are protected and they have dreams that they have to fulfill. Almost always, Western people think that the dreams that they have to turn into reality, they don't turn into reality in the realm of family and community. It's always through their career. And this combination of liberalism, individualism, turns into careerism, which creates the tremendous ambition of Western civilization. And since I'm trying to make my dreams a reality, and you're trying to make your dreams a reality, since it might be the same dream, so we're competing each other, and this is the competition, and this is the reason why Western people wake up earlier in the morning, and they make allies, and they think out of the box, and they pursue careers, and they create new knowledge. And all this massive ambition of the West, who enjoys the fruits of Western ambition?
Of Western individual ambitions.
Individual, egoistic ambition. I want to make it big. I want to fulfill my dreams. Who enjoys the fruits of Western ambition, individual ambition? Well, that's right. It's not always equal, but the collective enjoys the fruits of individual ambition. The collective enjoys it because individual ambition, first of all, creates new ideas, new knowledge. That's knowledge that the collective enjoys. But unless they're billionaires, you're right, usually you get taxed. Usually, the way the system works is that a lot of the fruits of your own individual work will move back to the collective, and they can build schools and hospitals and very powerful armies. So here's the secret formula of the West. Tells every individual: embrace your own dreams, pursue your own happiness, The pursuit of happiness, the way you understand it and feel it. You do it the way Frank Sinatra sings. You do it
My way.
your way, your own individual way. Forget about the collective, and then magically, who will enjoy the fruits of that move? The collective. Now,
Since we're sitting in a British crowd, then I can't not think about Monty Python, right? We are all individuals. You know, the
Exactly.
collective stands there and everyone's yelling, we are all individuals. That's basically the idea.
That's the idea. As individuals, we collectively become ambitious. We forget about the collective, but who enjoys the fruits? The collective. Now, this dialectic move does not exist in other systems, like fascism, communism, fundamentalism. There they tell people the best way to serve the collective is to forget about yourself and serve the collective. Sacrifice yourself for the collective. That's communism. That's fascism. That's fundamentalism. It's linear. How does the individual serve the collective? By erasing himself and serving the collective. Now, these different systems assume that a large amount of people for a large amount of time can overcome their egoistic nature. What has history proven time and time again? Like with communism, what has history proven time and time again? That human nature is like gravity, and you can't escape it. It will always collapse. The brilliance of Western civilization is it doesn't say to you, forget about your own ambition in service of the collective. On the contrary, don't deny human egoistic nature. Flow with it. Go with it. Pursue your own dreams. Forget about the collective. And who will enjoy the fruits? The collective. So it creates, by this dialectic move, harmony between individualism and collectivism. So if I bring this to Israel, Israel is the startup nation. Israelis are so ambitious. Israelis are so liberal. We have rights. We have liberties. Please don't you dare tell me what to do. We have dreams and we are very ambitious, and Israelis develop very impressive careers, and their careers create new ideas and new knowledge and new startups and abundance, and the fruits of all that go to the collective, and it enables us to build the great country that Israel is and the very advanced military that Israel has, and as a result, Israel has strength. So, it seems like when people ask, how can you survive in a neighborhood, in the jungle, in the Middle East as a Western country? Maybe the answer is, we can survive
because we are a Western country.
Because we are a Western country. The alchemy of the West. The grand alchemy of the West, of turning individual ambition into collective strength, that Western alchemy works in Israel and makes Israel a very powerful country with a very strong military.
As we say, but.
Aval.
Ken aval. All that collapses when there's a war.
When a war breaks out, all this mysterious alchemy of the West, transforming egoistic ambition into collective power, that collapses when a war breaks out.
And let's try to map out why that alchemy that you just talked about collapses when a war breaks out. You take maybe the three main points of Western civilization that you mentioned now, and let's try to see how each one of these three things turns against you when a war breaks out.
So let's start with the idea of self-fulfillment, the grand mitzvah, the invisible commandment of liberal societies is every person is unique and every person has to find himself or herself and then fulfill themselves. Those are the two commandments of individualism. The problem is that when you're in war, what we have to do when we're in war is not fulfill ourselves. It's not self-actualization. What war demands is self-sacrifice. When this war broke out, over 300,000 Israelis left their home, went to reserves, to fight for our country.
You have people who have startups, they have private businesses, they are CEOs of large companies, lawyers, doctors.
They left everything, and their families, and their own dreams, their own careers. They left everything and went to reserves to fight for our country, to fight to protect our nation. Imagine we tell them, hey, the secret sauce of the West is that by forgetting about the collective and pursuing your own dreams, the collective becomes strong. If we try to implement that in war, if all these 300,000 incredible Israelis would have thought that way, I'll just do what's good for me, and in a mysterious way, that'll be good for the collective.
That doesn't work.
If they would do that in war, what would happen? No one would show up. No one would show up. They'd leave. So here's the problem. Western civilization gets strength from self-fulfillment, but in a time of war, we need self-sacrifice. Second problem is with individualism. When we believe that every individual is unique and has an inner world, which is like it's true, like there's nothing like him or her. And the more we glorify the individual, the harder it is for us as a society to stomach losses.
And I think anyone who lives in Israel today knows that terrible hour of the day, 6 o'clock in the morning, when you wake up, those of us who wake up early, and you open up your phone, and there's that dreaded expression, hutar lepirsum. It was released for publishing. Who was killed in the past 24 hours?
That's the censorship opens it up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right. So those two words, hutar lepirsum, are the 2 seconds between you opening your eyes and you opening your phone, and you know what you're going to see. 9 soldiers killed, 10 soldiers killed, 2, 1, and every one of them is a world. Is a world in itself.
Because we are individualists, and because Israelis glorify every individual of every soldier, makes it very hard to get through. And by the way, it's not only the Israelis that get. It's a neighbor of mine, Baal Sheshat, got his
injured.
He lost his eye like this. Yeah, boom, חטף רסיסים בעין. Actually, so he's still fighting for his eye. We're praying for his. And these are, and then finally, the third problem is that Western civilization trains our mind to experience time in a very odd way. We expect everything to happen very quickly. The Western civilization is about shrinking the gap between effort and reward. You know, when you open the screen and it takes it a minute, what do we all do? It's not working. Give it a minute. We don't have a minute. Middle Eastern time is different.
It's a different time zone, literally. It's a different time zone.
The way Westerners experience time and the way non-Westerners, there's this great work by Heinrich, the weirdest people of the world. Are you aware of his work? Anyway, Western psychology is weird. Weird is an acronym. Western, weird, individualistic, rich, democratic. Anyway, it's an acronym. And Western people industrialized. Western people experience time. And spelled this before?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was the way the West experiences time and the rest experience time. When I was, like many Israelis do, when I graduated military, I went to Israelis like to go after the army for a large for
הטיול הגדול אחרי הצבא. It's like
you know that idea?
The great
trip
go to
Thailand. Yeah. So I went. I actually was so weird. I went to Peru for a month. That's all I did, and that's considered very, very limited time. And I was hiking in the Huaraz, which is an amazing hike, and I was trying to make my way back, I think, to Lima, and I get in a taxi, and it's like 9, 10-hour ride. And I'm just sitting there, and we're going. And after a few hours, the cab driver, is cab American or English? The word cab.
American, I think.
So, that's fine. Y'all get, yeah. So we're worse. We're Israelis, and the English that we know is from American movies. So it's the worst combination. So after a few hours, he stops and he says, "I'll be back soon." I said, "Okay, I'll be back soon." Okay. So after 5, 10 minutes, he's not back. He said he'll be back soon. It's like 45 minutes. I get out of the taxi. I'm worried. I go look for him. I'm looking around. I see him playing.
Soccer.
Not soccer. Football, right?
No. Oh,
I see him playing football with his friend. Soccer.
Sorry.
I see him playing football with his friends. So I'm waiting for you in the taxi. And he said, "I told you I'll come soon." I told you I'll come soon. Okay, so that's the moment I realized when a Western person thinks soon and a non-Western person says soon, it's a very different soon.
And when you're in the Middle East, that gap is even greater.
That's right. In Islam, there's an idea, sabir, patience is a value of its own, on its own. Here's the problem. Here's why it's very hard to fight a war when you're Western. We expect immediate reward for our effort, and in war, we put in a lot of effort. Actually, the price we pay for war, we pay in cash. And the cash, as Churchill said, what's cash? Blood, sweat, and tears. And toil, amal, nachon. That part is never quoted. Blood, sweat, and tears. We lose our precious, precious soldiers every day. Where's the reward? Where's Yichie Sinwar's head?
Why aren't you winning the war yet? What's going on?
What's going on?
Why aren't
Where are
you
the
winning
hostages? The problem is, as Western people, we expect immediate results for effort, and in war, the effort is immediate, and the results are not certain, and they're somewhere in the future. So what we're saying is the following: because we're Western, we have so much strength that enables us to go to this war, but because we're Western, our habits of our mind are about self-fulfillment, and war is about self-sacrifice. We need to stomach losses, and the habits of our mind are about the greatness of and uniqueness of every individual. The war is a long journey, no matter how long and hard the road may be. If there is no victory, there is no survival. Winston Churchill. The war is long and hard, and we're Western. We need immediate results. Here's our arguments. All the habits that make us strong in time of peace make us weak in time of war. We have to overcome our Western habits. So
we have a catch.
We have a catch.
Right, we have a catch.
That's right.
And this is the catch.
If
we're not Western,
we'll lose.
We'll lose the war.
Here's why we'll lose. If we're not Western, we'll lose the war. Because if we're not a Western society, and we're not implementing every day the alchemy of the West, transforming egoistic ambition into collective power, if we're not doing that, we'll have a Middle Eastern economy, and therefore we'll have a Middle Eastern military. We would lose the quality gap between our military and the militaries of our neighbors. So if there's no quality gap, there's only a quantity gap. And the quantity advantage is on whose side? The Middle East, which means if we're not Western, we will lose.
But here's the catch. If we are Western, we can't win.
We can't win. We can't win. We don't have the savlanut, the sabir, how do you say, patience to get through. We have a hard time stomaching losses. And we constantly about self-fulfillment, not self-sacrifice. That's the catch. Because if we're not Western, we will lose. But because we're Western, we have a very hard time winning. When we ask not what do we have to do in order to win, but who do we have to be in order to win, here's the catch.
And I think it should be said that this is specifically an Israeli problem. Because, I mean, the catch could be a Western catch, aside for the fact that most Western countries have other Western countries as neighbors, right? So
you're a mansion in Beverly Hills.
Right, exactly. And
not a mansion in the jungle.
Right. So that's why this is specifically an Israeli dilemma. It's an Israeli catch. And because it is, we put that major catch on the table. And I think it's worth it to say that on the third point that you made about the time, experience of time, you told your story about South America, right?
Soon.
I think when I don't know if you got the videos of Israeli soldiers in Hanukkah lighting candles in Sajaiya or wherever in Gaza, and they were singing, you know, על הניסים ועל הנפלאות ועל המלחמות שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם ובזמן הזה. And some of these soldiers, in their own feelings, in their own sense of time, they felt like they were a point on a timeline bringing together the Hashmonaim way back then and today Gaza. So they're like a spot on the timeline of Jewish history. Not Western history.
Which that powerful image of our soldiers singing in Jabalia that we are in the same story of the Hashmonaim, of the Maccabees.
It's the same war. It's just been going on.
So they're experiencing time differently, which is a great segue into a question. If Israel is so Western, how is it that our soldiers are willing to, that are so used to it, their habits of mind, to self-fulfillment? How is it that these brave people are willing to go through a self-sacrifice? And then, by the way, I really, this is, for me and for Efrat, the first time we left Israel ever since October 7th. I refused to leave Israel ever since October 7th. I couldn't imagine not being in my country that's at war outside of October 7th, after October 7th. So all we hear about what's going on is from the news, and we know you hear a lot of stuff, but are you hearing, I'm just curious, about the bravery of our soldiers? Are you? No, I'm talking about Jews, people that come to the Jewish book, people that read Jewish books. Are you hearing about Jewish, about the heroic, about a guy in Sderot that takes his car on October 7th and goes into the music party and brings people out, and then he goes in and brings out, and he's doing this again and again until he gets a bullet? Did you hear about Tomer Greenberg, Magat 13, the head of the
13th Battalion?
13th Battalion of Golani, that his soldiers were in trouble somewhere, and they heard in Israel, most of with a not proportionate number, the casualties are commanders, because they are literally there first. They're literally. If we didn't plan this, should I tell the story about my book and my publisher?
Yeah, why not?
What's our time situation?
Yeah, we have another half an hour, I think.
Half an hour. Should I tell the Barsal Sheva?
Oh, why not?
I just want to say, maybe it's too much of a long story, but I just want to say, in Israel, there's a sense, we grew up on stories from the War of Independence, from the 6-Day War.
50 years for the Yom Kippur War the day. And
all these stories created incredible heroes. People that blocked the Syrian army in the Golan Heights, who fought in Ammunition Hill in the 6-Day War. And I think I was under the impression, I think you were also, that all this Israeli heroism is a part of our past. It's not who we are anymore.
You know what? Even more so, I think when you look at generation, I learned we're in England, so we have to say Z, right? Okay, I'm not going to make that mistake again. So Generation Z, we were like, our generation, we're depressed. If these are the kids that are supposed to be the leaders of the next generation of Israel, we can just pack our bags and leave. You know, they're narcissists and they're egotistical and they just sit on the bed all day and watch Netflix or whatever. And do you want them to anything you want them to do? They don't want to do anything. They just want to connect to everything.
No, and for good reasons we thought that, because
that's what they were like.
I wrote a book in Hebrew. It's not in English. Mifleget Hamachshavot, The Attention Revolution. It's all about all the research describing how people that are raised in a situation, Alyssa heard me preaching about this a lot. Yes, people that are raised in a way that you're always on screens, it shrinks their attention span, and they become all absorbed in themselves, and it increases narcissism, and empathy is down, and all the work of a Sherry Turkle. And these are not people that could think outside of themselves. October 7th, Israel wasn't surprised once, it was surprised twice. We were surprised by the cruelty of our vicious, disgusting enemy. But at the same time, we were shocked and surprised by the bravery and the heroism of this Israeli generation.
And self-sacrificing.
Self-sacrifice and not altruism.
Kids, they just.
So this is me and Efrat. We think this generation of Israelis between 20 and 40, that age group, in a way that I can't understand. I have no theory that can explain this. This is the greatest generation in the history of Israel.
I have to say, you know, I heard Gadi Eisenkot, who is a cabinet member and used to be the chief of staff, and I'm sure you know his son was killed in Gaza a few months ago. And he was interviewed the other day, and he said, you know, Gal, my son, he was a couch potato. When he was 14, he sat on the couch and watched Netflix the whole day, from morning to night. And I said to my wife, says Gadi Eisenkot, I said to my wife, what's going to become of this child? What's going to become of him? And he became a war hero.
It's so shocking. So I have a story, but we have time. Okay. But like when I speak to warrior, brave soldiers, I grew up on their stories from 73. So I spoke to one last week, and he said, Micha, you should know, me and all my friends, we feel like we're dwarfs when we stand in front of this generation, of Yonatan's generation. This is how we feel. They all recognize that that Israeli greatness is not nostalgia anymore. It's not stories about our founding fathers and mothers. It's not stories about the past. So now this all takes us, this challenges the entire theory that we're presenting here. That Western habits make you about self-fulfillment, not self-sacrifice, individualism, not collectivism, need for immediate satisfaction of your needs, and not being willing to go all the way in the long. So what did we get wrong? This generation is somehow telling us something, that this whole theory that there's a catch here is wrong. And I think this is an opportunity
to unpack.
To unpack that.
What's special about...
Because when we say there's a catch, we assume a binary dilemma. The binary, are you the mansion or are you the jungle? Are you Western or Middle Eastern? You have to be one thing. Are you individualist or collectivist? You have to be one thing. And then there's a catch, because if we're collectivists, if we're Middle Eastern, we'll lose. If we're Western, we can't win. That whole catch assumes you can only be one thing. But the truth is, as by the way, Emil Durkheim taught us, the great sociologist, and there's a lot of work of Jonathan Haidt on this. Are you acquainted with these guys? That human soul is so much more interesting and messy and flexible and large, and we don't have to be one thing. The interesting thing about Israel is that if you read our founding document, Megillat Ha'atzmaut, our Declaration of Independence, it designs Israel as two things, not one thing. It's a Jewish democracy. And the interesting thing is that critical mass of Israelis have absorbed a hybrid identity. Jewish democracy, and
we have to try to understand, what does it mean? It's like the oldest controversy in the book. What does it mean to be a Jewish democracy? But I think for our discussion, it's a pretty simple answer. What does it mean to be a Jewish country? First of all, what does it not mean?
Okay, so Judaism is a lot of stuff. If you ask Philo, the great philosopher, he would say Judaism is a philosophy. If you ask some American Jews, Judaism is an monotheistic, it's a sense, it's ethics. What is Judaism? So Judaism could be a lot of things, but when we create that formula, Jewish democracy, out of all the different possible meanings of Judaism, we mean one very specific thing. And that is, Judaism is not a faith that you believe in. It is. But that's not what we say. What we mean when we say Jewish, when we say Jewish democracy. It's not the law that you obey. There is law in Judaism, halacha, some people obey it, but that's not what we mean when we say Jewish and Jewish democracy. When we say Jewish and Jewish democracy, it's not a law that we obey, it's a story that we belong to. It's a story that we belong to.
And you have a personal story to tell about this.
Okay. We have time for my stuff?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Because I can't read the watch. Does that?
I don't know what it says here. It's not a watch. I know what my watch says.
Okay, because it's all, maybe it's upside down.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe
what?
it's upside down.
Okay.
Yeah, it's upside down.
Oh, it's upside down.
Yeah, it's a real watch.
אז ישאל לנו 23 דקות.
Yeah, I think so.
כמה זמן זה?
כן.
So, my mom used to be a Roman Catholic from Oklahoma City. And she comes from a very religious family. She's one out of 7. Her oldest brother was a priest. Her uncle, we called him Grunkle Jack, he was John Paul II's personal advisor. You have cousins that are nuns and priests.
I laugh at him that the religious part of his family is from a different religion.
The Charedim in my family are from Oklahoma. The ultra-Orthodox are from Oklahoma. And anyway, so there's a story there. She converted, there's a story there. But as a child, I was very aware of my mom's Catholic background. I thought it was very cool. My grandmother had this big cross. I was raised Orthodox, Jerusalem.
Jewish Orthodox, I have to say.
Not Greek Orthodox, yeah. And my mom, not my mom, my grandma. Anyway, so I thought it was kind of cool, like as a kid. When I was a teenager, I was very embarrassed of this. I used to hide this. No, I didn't want anybody to know because I was a teenager and I was a jerk. But when I was a kid, I was very aware of the Catholic background of my mom. And I remember once listening to my mom speaking to her friends, and she was speaking about how in the Middle Ages we were persecuted, and the Spanish Inquisition and the pogroms, they always wanted to get, us Jews, we were always persecuted. And I remember asking my mom, but Mommy, your ancestors weren't persecuted. You were from,
The other side.
Yeah. And she answered me in a very direct way. She said, I'm a Jew, and anything that ever happened to Jews happened to me. And at that moment, it took me years to reflect on what she said. Today, by the way, when she speaks about we created the state of Israel in 48 and we won in 67, that doesn't surprise me. That's how she speaks. What is a sense of belonging to a collective? And the best way to think about belonging to a collective is thinking about conversion. The moment you change teams, you join a club. And we think that joining a club, joining a team, joining a collective, joining Judaism, it means you're changing your future. And it's true, you're changing your future. But the heart of the experience is that you're changing your past. Judaism, Jewish democracy, the Jewish is not a faith you believe in, although many Israelis believe in God, but that's not what it means, the character of our state. It's not the law that you obey, it's the story that you belong to. The fundamental experience of collectivism is the following. I belong to a collective, so the story of the collective becomes my individual story. What Efrat was telling us about Golani and Jabalia and Chativa 401 in Gaza, and Ner Rishon Shel Chanukah, in the first candlelighting of Chanukah, when we're watching on our screens and we see them, the soldiers, and always they're very like joyful, the soldiers, and they were singing She'asani Sim La'avotenu. When they sing Ale Yeshuot V'Ale Milchamot, spelling the wars. Shasita La'avotenu, that you've done to our fathers. Bayamim Ahem, 2,200 years ago to the Hashmonites. Bazman Hazeh, what were they saying? They weren't obeying the law although they are obeying Haluchot Chanukah, like the laws of Chanukah.
I don't know if they lit the candle on the
right in the right time of Chanukah.
On the windowsill.
Yes. They were saying there is a big story and we belong to it, and that is a sense. Jewish democracy, the Jewish part, is belonging to a story.
And just like the Jewish part can have a lot of meanings, and you talked about one specific meaning, so the word democracy can have a lot of meanings. And I think the past year in Israel, until October 7th, there was a very fired up discussion, if I can call it a discussion, about what the word democracy means. But you also have one definition that's relevant to our discussion.
If we'll boil it down, what is democracy? It's the idea that the authority of government comes from the individuals, from all the individuals. So as an individual, I'm the source of the authority of the government. But at the same time, not only me as an individual, I'm the source of the authority of the government, I am also the limitation of the power of the government. Which means the basis of democracy is individualism. That every individual has liberties, rights, and they should be protected. The individual appoints the government and limits the power of government at the same time. What we're trying to establish is the following idea. The ideas behind Jewish democracy are collectivism, individualism. Are you following us? Collectivism, individualism. Collectivism is what gives you resilience. Individualism is what gives us strength or power, maybe power.
Power.
Okay. So we're thinking in Hebrew, but we like to say this. What is power? What is the power of a nation? The power of a nation is the sum of all its yecholot katlaniot, all its
lethal possibilities or lethal
yecholot.
Capacities. Lethal capacities.
So our Golani soldiers are part of our power and are, according to foreign sources, nuclear submarines. They're also a part of our power. The sum of our power is what gives us the ability to hit our enemy hard. What's resilience? A resilient person is not a person that doesn't get hit. Who is a resilient person or resilient society? You get hit and you stand back up. You get hit again and you stand back up. Power is our ability to hit. Resilience is our ability to get hit. To win this war, we need both. If I was asking, who do we need to, not what do we need to do, like to bomb Beirut or Rafah, those are important questions. What do we need to do? But who do we need to be? We need to be a society with a lot of power and a lot of resilience.
And if we go back to the metaphor, to the Ehud Barak metaphor.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so Western society has power, can hit.
But it doesn't have resilience,
And the Middle Eastern society has a lot of resilience.
but not always a lot of power. That's the catch. To win, we need to have power and resilience. The power to hit and to get hit, and to come back standing. The power to hit comes from individualism, the whole alchemy of ambition that turns into power. To get hit, we need collectivism. Because when you know that you're part of a story that's bigger than yourself, so like when a soldier dies in Israel, I think we don't know one per thing, we know two things. We know this person has a story of its own because we're individuals. We also know he's a part of a story that's bigger than himself. By the way, as collectivists, we belong to a story. It also means that we experience time differently, just like Efrat was saying. Because as an individual, I need things to happen now. But as a collective, Chanukah is relevant to me even if it didn't happen yesterday. And
You know that there's an expression in Hebrew that people say a lot in Israel, and I'll say it in Hebrew. Am hanetzach lo mefached miderech aruka. Right? Thank you. Eternal people are not afraid of a long road. And that's like an expression used to describe the people of Israel. You know what? If this happens, we're not afraid. The road is long.
so because as a collective, we experience time not in a Western way. As individuals, we do. See, Israelis, not all Israelis, but critical mass of Israelis have like two parallel emotional systems. Massive individualist, kick-ass individual egoism that's creating the startup nation, excuse my French, and the ability, and that those same people that build startups are, as we're talking in Gaza, that's collectivism. And that's a sense that we know that we belong to a story bigger than ourselves. Now, Durkheim, Emil Durkheim, and sorry, he says, what does it mean to be a human being? A human being is homo duplex. Like
A duplex, it's like a building with two floors.
And as Jonathan Haidt explains Durkheim, one floor has many emotions in it. Our envy and our fear and our pride and our anger.
Passion.
Our passion. Those emotions, and when we see them, we recognize them. Oh, those are my individual emotions. But there's a second floor filled with different sets of emotions that Western people have a hard time creating access to that floor. Sometimes in a soccer game, you feel like you're part of a collective. You're like a molecule inside something big.
Football game, sorry.
Football game, you're right. Some people use psychedelics to feel like they're part of something big.
Or a music festival.
Music festival. That's where patriotism, belonging, loyalty, that's where it is. Being fully human is being able to move between these two. Western people have a hard time with like a very massive individualistic society, as Jonathan Haidt argues, experiencing the second floor of belonging, of surrendering to the collective, sacrificing for the collective. Fundamentalist societies try to trap you in the second floor, and your individual dreams don't count. Your individual rights make us weak. There's always that narrative about liberalism.
The elevator only goes up to the second floor. It doesn't stop on the first floor.
It's very hard to live in both floors.
Yep.
So Efrat asks, who do we have to be in order to win? What's the answer? We need to be ourselves. A Jewish democracy. It's not easy being ourselves. It's not easy being hybrids. It's not easy being individualistic, collectivistic society. Our binary temptation is choose one. But maybe the challenge of being an Israeli is not the challenge of being an Israeli. Maybe as Durkheim taught, it's a challenge of being human. In order to win, we have to live our humanity, bimlo'o, how do you say, in its fullest. In its fullest. And this is the challenge, this is how we try to formalize the challenge that this war is presenting in front of us Israelis. The more human we will be, the more victorious we will be. We have time for questions. I'm happy. This was our spiel. Thank you very much.
First of all, I'm a bit starstruck, so I'm just going to say. And I've had I said I'm a bit starstruck.
A microphone is coming to you.
Oh, okay. My best primary school teacher. Hi, I was saying I'm a bit starstruck, and I've had a morning of you because I listened to you this morning, both in Hebrew and in English on various podcasts. So, question for you. Aside from, we are really living through a physical war, but we're also living through a war which is playing out in social media and in the press. How do we take what you just said about the individualism and the collectivism, because what we're being bombarded by is Western press, and from what you're saying, the Western press doesn't really understand that long road, but we're living through it, especially Chutz La'aretz, where we are being bombarded by, on our streets and on our phones and on our television and in our newspapers, by a very problematic war as well.
First of all, can I just say something? I think I want to give you empathy to what you're going through, because in Israel, we know it's at stake, and we know that we're the mansion in the jungle. So there's a jungle around us, and this conversation that we're having, it's really existential. But you, allegedly living in a Western neighborhood, allegedly living in all these liberal, values, have to deal with something so complex and such a challenge that really, that would be a totally different discussion, I think. And I'll let Micah answer the question.
No,
I just wanted to be emphatic.
I have no answer. Algorithms are not friendly to hybrid thinking. Algorithms promote binary thinking. Algorithms say you can only be one thing, one identity. And Israelis are hybrid. We are very patriotic and most Israelis, not all Israelis. I have a book coming out. It's coming out
in 2 weeks.
Next week.
Next week.
It's in Hebrew. It's in Hebrew called Hayom Hashmini, the 8th day, Israel after October 7th. And in the second part of the book, there's a large poll that was done. And this is what we did in this poll. We try to rank Israelis how patriotic they are and how liberal they are. Different questions. And you see there's a minority of Israelis that are very patriotic and very not liberal. It's not a small minority, but it's not a large minority. There's a very small minority that's very liberal and very not patriotic. But you know what most Israelis are? Most Israelis score high on both. Very patriotic, very liberal. That's individualists, collectivists. That's Israelis. We're hybrid. That's who we are. Leumim liberalim. Patriotic and liberal. It's very hard to manage that. And social media is not. So first of all, I don't think you could convince on social media, and I don't think it's possible in social media to share the news about the hybrid character of Israel and Israelis. I don't think we could do that in social media. It has to be like this, like real conversations. So that's the bad news. I just hope that our friends, people that love Israel, Jews, our friends, could hang in there. Could hang in there while...
Be resilient.
And be resilient. Could hang in there because we need your support all the way through.
But they also need our support. I think that's what you're saying. Yeah. Yep. Please. Yeah. Maybe we'll take 3 questions and then you'll answer all 3 of them. Yeah. Yeah. The one up front, and then you in the back, and then the third one.
It's very interesting to hear how you're talking about being, how Israelis need to be in war. But my big question is, how do you be in peace? What is the thinking? How do you go to war? And you need a vision for your peace afterwards. How you're going to actually, what you want. What are you going to war for? None of what you've said this morning, for me, addresses how you're being in war, fine. But how are you being to create a peace that you want to live in? What's the thinking? What's the vision? I don't get any of that from you so far today.
We'll take 2 more questions and then.
A major part of Israel's founding was the kibbutz movement. Do you think that this has contributed in any way to the collectivism you're talking about today?
Okay. And there was a 3rd question over there.
And there's also, let's take 4 questions. There's this nice guy
and one
here.
over here. Okay.
Hi, don't you think that the parts of the Middle East, anyway, are changing from jungle to mansion, particularly the Gulf Arabs?
Okay, and another question over here, and then we'll. Okay.
I found this discussion not just interesting but fascinating.
Thank you.
But I'm curious. I understand that the podcast is very popular. Have you any idea what kind of people who listens to it and what effect you have on the Israeli population?
Who listens to it? We have a sense that Israeli leadership, and I think what's unique about it, also leadership from both sides of the aisle, and Israelis from both sides of the aisle. They feel like this is a space, because we don't mention people. We don't say, is Bibi good or bad? Yair Lapid.
And we take a lot of heat because of that, by the way, because we are not willing to go into the personal issue or interests or power or Machiavellism, and we just talk about ideas.
Just ideas.
And that's what allows a lot of people to
from all sides of the aisle
come into conversation. And I'll just add, because Micha said leadership and political leadership and military leadership and elite in general, but I think what I'm most proud of is that my kids' friends listen to it. Really, I'm serious. This generation, the narcissists, the egoists, the escapists. I have teenage kids and I have 3 soldiers, and all of their friends listen. And I think that is just a big surprise to both of us, right?
Yeah.
So you want to start answering these more difficult questions?
Yes, but we have 3 minutes and 28 seconds. Are there any more questions? אני אוהב לשמוע את השאלות אבל, זה מעניין.
Okay.
Just one last, Ken? Sir?
I just want to ask you about the mansion, because when the mansion was put up, there was a small extension which housed a Haredi yeshiva. And in 30 years' time, the Haredi yeshiva might be bigger than the mansion. So I'm wondering where that fits.
Okay.
That's going to be our next season.
Yeah, actually, so first of all, this whole metaphor of Ehud Barak is wrong, obviously. It assumes that all the Middle East is one thing and all Israel is one thing. And that's just saying not all Israel is a mansion. And as you were saying, now all the Middle East is a jungle. Okay, so it's obviously, it's a metaphor it's obviously a messy metaphor.
But by the way, if you look at the Middle East, that's not a jungle, changes there are being made because really they're not as resilient. I mean, you see the families of the Hamas leadership that are out of Gaza. They're sitting in Qatar. They're sitting, they have a much easier life, and maybe the resilience there is a little not as strong as it is in Gaza.
I hope they won't be enjoying themselves for a while.
Well, whatever. But I think the fact that it's messy only shows the trade-off.
That's right.
And the trade-off is starting to take its toll.
But there was a question here about where is this war going, and that's a very, very big question. We have 2 minutes left, so I'll just go directly to the question, where is this war going?
That said it all.
No. If we measure this war not in the next week or month, but this is a very long journey, this is how it needs to end. It needs to end where we restore the trust of Israelis in Israel, and we restore the fear of the Middle East from Israel. By the way, it comes together. The more the Middle East will fear Israel, the more Israelis will trust Israel, and vice versa. How do we get there? How? Because only then Israel will be safe again. Right now, October 7th happened. We have about roughly 150,000 people not living in their homes, afraid to go back. Israelis are asking, can October 7th happen again? Restoring, and our neighbors are saying, maybe we could bully Israel. The fear from Israel has been lost. The trust of Israelis in Israel. We have to restore all. And here's the problem that I want to share with you. In order to restore the fear of the Middle East from Israel, we might have to lose some of the sympathy of the West for Israel. It might be a zero-sum game. I know that our friends in the West want us to do everything we can to make sure that the West sympathizes with Israel. But it might be true that everything we do to restore the sympathy of the West, that might make us lose the fear of the Middle East. And everything that we'll have to do to restore the fear of the Middle East might make us lose the sympathy of the West. What do you think is, we want both. We want to be loved by the West and feared by the Middle East. We want both. But if you were Israelis, what emotion is more important? Being loved by the West or being feared by the Middle East? As Israelis, what would make you sleep better at night? Which emotion?
Literally sleep better at night. Yeah.
So that's a problem. But there's a catch here. There's a catch here. If we lose the sympathy of the left, of the West, we might lose the power, the support that will enable us to restore the fear of the Middle East. This is the catch we're in. This is catch 24. This is the catch we're in. We have to figure this out. We have to be creative now. We have to be courageous now. And we have to do this together. Our time is up. On October 7th, Hamas did not attack the state of Israel. It attacked the Jewish people. We were attacked together. We will fight this together. We're in this together. Toda rabah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.